Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty fascinating journey. So right now, just take a quick mental breath. Literally, let's zoom out, far past our everyday routines, past our planet, all the way out to the absolute edges of the universe. We're diving into a really compelling cosmological argument from our source material that uses basic natural observations to make logical deductions about the origin of, well, absolutely everything. This isn't just about reading off facts and figures. We're treating this as a sort of guided meditation on existence itself.
Okay, let's get right into it. Our source highlights this incredibly striking observation by astronomer Dr. Robert Jastrow, and he compares the universe to a winding clock. Just picture an old-school mechanical clock ticking away. The laws of thermodynamics, which, are the undeniable rules of physical science, they actually prove that our material universe is constantly losing usable energy. It's degrading, it's aging. And logically, if the universe is slowly winding down, it absolutely cannot be eternal. There literally must have been a specific moment when it was fully wound up, right? It had to have a beginning.
Which naturally brings us to the ultimate question, the one that has captivated humanity for centuries. If the universe is running down, who or what wound it up in the first place? Just meditate on that for a second. What kind of massive force or presence could have possibly triggered this cosmic beginning? To figure this out, the cosmological argument gives us a really solid framework to evaluate the origin of the cosmos. According to our sources, when you strip away all the wildly complex theories, there are really only three logical options we can evaluate for how the universe began. Number one, it's simply always been here, just an uncaused eternal existence. Number two, it's somehow self-created, pulling itself into reality out of thin air. Or, number three, it was authored by an external agent, something existing completely outside of the universe itself. Let's break these down logically. To tackle that first option, we really need to understand this crucial concept called contingency. To be contingent basically means you depend on something else for your existence. As we just saw with thermodynamics, our physical universe is winding down. It ages, it changes. Therefore, it is contingent. It physically cannot be uncaused or eternal because its degrading matter relies entirely on a definite starting point. So option one is off the table. Our universe is undeniably dependent.
All right, so what about option two? Self-creation. The incredibly famous physicist Stephen Hawking actually argued that because laws like gravity exist, the universe can create itself. But Dr. John Lennox points out a pretty massive logical flaw here. He notes that Hawking is confusing a natural law with a personal agency. Think about it like chess. The rules of chess can't actually move the pieces without a player, right? Dr. Lennox argues that natural laws literally cannot create anything. They just describe what happens to matter under certain conditions. For something to come from absolute nothingness, you don't just need a descriptive law, you need an acting agency. So logically and scientifically, self-creation is kind of nonsensical.
With options 1 and 2 completely defying physical laws and basic logic, our source material concludes we are left with option 3. The universe absolutely must be the result of a necessary, non-contingent external agent. It required something totally outside of itself to bring it into being. Take a breath here as we shift our focus. If this external agent exists, what specific attributes must it possess, based purely on logical deductions from the universe we actually see around us?
Let's look at the first attribute. Think about the classic chicken and the egg paradox. Literally everything we see comes from something prior. But you can't trace that chain backward forever. At the very beginning of a contingent universe, there has to be a first cause. And here's the crucial part. This first cause must be completely uncaused. It has to exist simply by necessity, totally independent of anything else, ready to kickstart that entire chain of existence.
Our source draws a super fascinating parallel between the strict logical deduction and ancient biblical texts. In the book of Exodus, God describes himself to Moses with two simple words, I am. Pause and just reflect on that for a second. I am. The source argues this perfectly mirrors that logical necessity of an uncaused, completely independent existence. It's framed as the ultimate statement of foundational reality. Next, let's meditate on the fourth dimension, time. Time has a flow, and it has a definite starting point at the cosmic beginning. Try thinking of time as a physical property. If you're an author writing a novel, you create the timeline for your characters, but you yourself sit completely outside of that book's timeline. It just makes logical sense that the creator who initiated the timeline of our universe, the one who pressed start on the clock, must sit completely outside of it. You literally cannot be bound by a dimension you yourself created from scratch. And if the creator sits entirely outside the flow of time, well, that brings us to attribute number 2, eternal. To be outside of time is to be completely unaffected by its passage. You're untouched by aging or degrading. Our source notes how this logically eternal attribute aligns just beautifully with the poetic description in Psalm 90, which simply reads, "From everlasting to everlasting, you are God." Now, attribute 3 is equally staggering. Picture the vast, seemingly endless sea of billions of galaxies. Space itself is a characteristic of our universe. It's the 3D grid we happen to be confined to. But just as a video game developer isn't stuck inside the 3D map they just coded, the creator cannot be bound by the physical dimensions of space. Therefore, the creator must be spaceless, infinite, and by definition, omnipresent, literally everywhere at once, completely unbound by physical location. Let the profound weight of an omnipresent creator just settle over your mind for a moment as we reflect on this passage from Psalm 139. If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. It's this incredibly poetic expression of a deeply logical deduction. A creator completely unbound by three-dimensional space would seamlessly permeate all of reality.
Moving on to attribute 4. Visualize the periodic table of elements. Hydrogen, carbon, gold, oxygen, literally everything in our universe is made up of physical matter. But if the creator existed prior to the physical universe, prior to any matter existing at all, then logically, the creator has to be completely non-physical. Much like the idea for a painting exists in the painter's immaterial mind long before it ever touches the physical canvas, the original source of the physical world must be an immaterial mind, or spirit. And once again, the source points out a direct correlation here with the Gospel of John, which plainly states, God is spirit. It elegantly connects the ancient text right back to the logical deduction that the entire physical world was born out of a non-physical reality.
Now just think about the absolutely staggering, incomprehensible power of our sun alone, let alone the cosmic forces of 100 billion galaxies. Energy is the fundamental currency of our physical existence. Logically, the original source that somehow generated all of this energy, all of these physical laws, and raw matter from absolute nothingness, well, it must possess limitless power. That makes attribute 5, omnipotent, or all-powerful. This connects those vast, explosive forces of the cosmos directly to the omnipotence described right at the very start of the Bible in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. To fashion the raw energy of the entire cosmos requires a power that is completely without limits, which our source suggests echoes exactly what these logical deductions require. Synthesizing this whole journey, our source builds a breathtakingly symmetrical framework here. Time requires eternity. Space requires omnipresence. Material requires spirit. It literally takes these massive, overwhelming cosmic concepts and grounds them in clear, step-by-step deductions alongside ancient texts. It essentially creates a structured bridge between physical observation and philosophical logic. Which brings us to a final, really vital awakening, attribute 6. So we've established an infinite, eternal, immensely powerful force. But if this force was just an impersonal condition, like just some static energy hanging out in eternity, nothing would have ever changed. To go from a state of eternal nothingness to a finite universe, this force had to actually make a specific choice. It must be a personal, choosing agent. The really crucial point here is understanding the difference between a static condition and a personal agent. Think of water sitting at exactly 32 degrees. Without an outside force, an agent, choosing to change that condition, it will literally just sit there forever, totally suspended. The same goes for eternity. An eternal, impersonal condition would have just remained static forever. For a finite universe to suddenly burst into existence, a personal creator had to exercise free will. They had to actively choose to enact a change. And so we arrive at the end of our guided meditation. Based on the logic of the cosmological argument presented in our sources, our contingent, material universe points directly to a spaceless, timeless, insanely powerful, and most importantly, personal creator. So I want to leave you with this lingering thought. Tonight, as you look up at the vastness of the night sky, are you simply seeing the random result of an impersonal force? Or are you witnessing the deliberate, awe-inspiring choice of a personal agent? Keep learning, keep reflecting, and definitely keep asking the big questions.